Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. The major thing we're going to take care of today is the budget. 177, we are going to have a work day. I was called last night, kind of brought up to speed. The House has got about 20 amendments on their bill. The groups have come together. They're negotiating. They think if they can work through the weekend, that they can probably get this done. And so I'm all for the parties getting it done before we run it. And I thought that would give us a time to then maybe bring them in, give Chuck time to get the amendment drafted, and we can go down through detail. Also, I've asked Department of Commerce on 66 that we passed yesterday to put a list of where the counties where these angel tax credits, where they know they've been, and a list of people that have, and their how much their employment they're paying for the state and how many jobs. So we've had some secretaries in the past that haven't always been really good at keeping this information. I'm not going to beat this secretary up because the one particularly was the worst was Suave on keeping a lot of information, who was, I think, a Brownback appointment. And I think a lot of us would say today that were there, he wasn't a great appointment. Senator Tyson, you got a question?
Thank you. I won't get into the details of that, but one of his references did not even recommend him. Yes, I do have a question.
Suave you're talking about, right?
Yes. My concern is how many legislators could possibly be benefiting from these programs? And is there any way that you can get us that information as to the angel investor program and these other credit programs that we are looking at?
Senator Holland, go ahead. Well, wait, let's go ahead and let respond.
David Sofer, Legislative Policy Director, Department of Commerce. I do not know that it is public information who is an investor in this program. I will have to double check on the legality of disclosing that information.
I think if any public official receives more than $2,000, they would have to then document that on their SSI, I'm guessing. So, I mean, I don't know anybody that has done that, but you want to do a follow-up, or is that all you want? Senator Holland?
I appreciate Senator Tyson's comment specifically, because I remember when we were looking at the PEEP program years ago, that was actually one of the things. I'll take the credit. I'm not trying to blow my own horn to this, but sure, with the PEEP program, with all the hundreds of millions of dollars involved in that, that was one thing that I and others advocated for. Actually got put in that PEEP statute, I believe, is that basically if you were in the legislature, you could not benefit from that program. And so I think that's an excellent point to make as we look at all these programs. You know, economic development incentives, or even just basic tax policy, that we be sure that, you know, we're not, you know, perpetuating some conflicts of interest. Thank you.
Okay, and I've asked him on Star Bonds and some of the others to put a little more detailed map and some background of the projects and you know, the ones that are successful. You know, some of these projects are new, so they're gonna have less success, and others, you know, they could be 2 or 3 years in or farther, and yeah, I think like the Wyandotte County one will have more information than one that was just done. But we're going to definitely try to do a little more detail on these tax credits than I've seen in the past, and make sure everybody gets all the information they need. So with that, we're going to turn our attention to the budget. And I believe Senator Tyson, Senator O'Shea, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I'm gonna let her say something. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead, Senator Tyson. You had a motion without a second, I
No, I
believe.
hadn't made a motion yet.
Okay,
I hadn't, you had just called on me. So I will yield to the senator from Shawnee.
Senator O'Shea, you got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After digging a little deeper into this, I'd like to make a motion to restore the 20 FTE positions that were cut from the budget yesterday.
Okay, do I have a second? Have a second? I got a question, but I want a second first. I got a second. Question.
Is the motion in order since I yielded?
She has the floor. We're on the bill, so I believe it's in order.
This will be great. Thank you, Mr.
Chuck, are you on there?
I'm sorry, Chairman, did you mention my name?
Yeah. The question was asked if the motion was in order. When Senator Tyson yielded the floor to Senator O'Shea, she made a motion to restore the 20 jobs back into the budget. And then there was a second, and there was a question asked if that motion's in order. I believe it's in order. She yielded the floor. She had the floor on the budget. So I just want to make sure my revisor feels comfortable with it. Okay?
Chairman, I think if that's your interpretation of the rules of the committee, I think that's in order.
Okay. Questions or comments on the motion? Go ahead, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will not be supporting this motion. In fact, it's too aggressive. I've been working with the department and found out that there are some items that they consider needed, but the 20 is not. I would ask the carrier of the motion why she is depleting all of those FTEs. Why is she reversing the position?
O'Shea?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was able to learn that many of the positions were federally funded. So if the state is not offering these, well, I mean, then it's a he said, she said moment. It's my understanding that they're federal jobs and it's federal, we're losing out on federal dollars, and I don't think that was smart. That's why I made the motion. Thank you.
I also asked the question on the jobs, and that was my understanding too. I mean, I asked the question. That's the information I got, and so you've got the floor. Go ahead.
That's not accurate.
Well,
They're not federal jobs. These are state jobs. These are state FTEs. They are not federal jobs. So that is not accurate.
I have to rely on the information that's given to me. Senator O'Shea?
Could we have David explain,
Stauffer.
please?
David Stauffer, go ahead.
David Sofer, Legislative Policy Director, Department of Commerce. I'll try to explain it, and then I may ask Sherry, our CFO, to just make sure I say everything correctly and make sure I haven't misstated anything. The large portion of these jobs are either related to workforce, which is federally funded, or AJLA, which is fee funded. So the way that works is the state does not budget $1 for those jobs. We pay, if we do hire, we pay it out, and then we are restored that funding through either the fee fund or through federally funded. So we do not have so there is no quote unquote cost savings for those jobs because they are not budgeted for dollars wise from state dollars. There are a few jobs that are related to EDIF that are paid for out of EDIF. Those would be state dollar jobs. There's a handful of them. I believe the total would be somewhere around $500,000 and change on the EDIF side, but a large portion of the jobs we are talking about, they're not budgeted for. There's $0 budgeted in the state. Did I get that right, Sherry?
Those jobs that are.
Is your mic on? Can you turn it up?
me?
Still, we can barely hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear you real good.
Okay. This is Sherry Renfro, and David is correct. Those jobs are federally funded from our federal grants, so they are not budgeted for. We pay them out, and then we request federal dollars on a reimbursement basis for those expenditures.
Okay,
So they are not federal jobs, to be clear. These are state employee jobs.
That is correct. They are state employees, but they are funded through federal grant dollars.
Exactly, but you are not receiving any funding for these, so it would not harm anything for these positions to go away. Is that correct? Except for 5 of the positions, it's my understanding.
Well, those positions are needed to staff our.
we can't hardly hear you again. I don't know if you're away from the mic. Go ahead.
Those positions are needed to fully staff our workforce centers. So to remove those positions, we would be, short at those workforce centers, and we couldn't serve as many Kansans as we would like.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
if I may, that is not quite accurate from my understanding, that only approximately, let me ask it this way. How many jobs are for the workforce center and how many are for AG, for IT positions?
So from that list, there are approximately 12 that are AJLA that are vacant and about 20 that are workforce related.
12 and 20. And it is my understanding that you filled 17 of the 47 that were available?
Right, from that list, there are a majority that were filled, because at the time that list was submitted, that was when we submitted the budget, and they were vacant at that time, but they have since been filled.
And what IT jobs are you looking to fill?
Let's see here. We have programmers, programmed application developers. We have network engineers, IT manager, solution architect, project manager. And they are quite technical, so I couldn't go into the details onto, what each of those jobs do.
And how long have these positions been open?
They've been open for a couple years. Again, I say we are actively recruiting, but it is hard to find people that are willing to come.
So you are functioning without these positions being filled, and if we were to close these positions, we could save the state some money. And then when you needed the positions, you could come back for it. Yes, because 5 of the positions are actually being funded. Yes, sir.
The IT, the positions that Sherry is talking about, the AJLA, would not save the state money because they are a result of fee funds. So that would not, there's currently $0 budgeted for those positions. The jobs that we're talking about out of EDIF are related to community development, Main Street, business development, and the like. Those are not the same type of jobs that we're talking about currently.
Okay, well, Senator Straub?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, this question is for
Wait a
David.
second. I'm the chair. If I want to direct the questions wherever, I can direct them, okay? Thank you. Senator Straub.
Sorry, one moment, let me. So if these positions are fee-funded, who's paying those fees? And if those positions have been open, where did those fees go?
Sherry, are you able to answer that?
Yes, so the fees for AJLA are collected through, we have contracts with several states that utilize AJLA's services. So they are paying AJLA for their services. And that's how they receive their funding. For those positions, they've had to utilize outside contractors in order to fill those positions at this point. So those fees are being used to pay those contractors until they can get the position filled.
You have follow-up or? Good.
So in my experience, when you're contracting those services, sometimes you could be paying, 2, 3, 4 times what you would be able to keep that person in-house for. Do we have information and numbers on how much has been spent on contractual services that should have been for these open positions that were funded through the Commerce budget?
Yes, we have that information, and that is what we run into is when we are trying to hire, I mean, we're limited by how much we can, offer for positions. So unfortunately, we are having to spend more on contractors, whereas if we were to hire in-house, we could save some money there. But we do have some information that we could get to you.
Okay. Senator Schwab, go ahead.
So this is my understanding. If you're charging fees to these agencies or whatnot for these positions, and those fees are being used to pay for these contractual services, why are we funding full-time positions through the Commerce budget then? Where is the need? Where is that money going?
Well, that money is just, go ahead, David.
I was going to say again, so we're not funding those positions. We have a number that we can meet and then get reimbursed by the fee fund. We are not funding those positions. Currently, that budget is $0 for those positions. Until we fill it, we could then get reimbursed by the fee fund. But if we do not fill them, there is no budgeted amount for those positions. So the Commerce Department does not get any dollars for those positions.
That finish your answer? Senator Stuffin.
Thank you, Chairman. Let's go back over this fee fund. I don't understand it yet. Please.
Jerry, would you mind explaining the fee fund again?
Sure, the fee fund is monies that the AJLA is charging, or any agency, they have fee funds. They charge fees for their services. So they are not relying on any state dollars, but rather the money that they receive from the fees that they charge. So for AJLA, they are charging fees for the services that they're providing to other state workforce agencies to utilize AJLA's services.
So,
Senator O'Shea, did you have something you?
This might help. Can you back up and tell me what AJLA is?
Sure, that's America's JobLink Alliance, and they are an entity that's outside of, they're part of Commerce. They actually provide services to workforce agencies throughout the country, and it's a network that they help with those agencies get, they provide customer service, they connect employers and job seekers, and they help do programming to allow that.
Where do they get their funding? Is it a federal or funding or?
No, they are fee
business?
funded. They are fee funded. So states, like different state governments, they will contract with AJLA to use their services for their own workforce networks, and they pay us, AJLA, for those services. So they are funded through the fees that they receive for those contracts.
Stuffin?
I'm still struggling to get my head around it all, but if you keep these fee-funded positions, that opens up the opportunity to erase other positions that are taking money out of the budget. So it sounds to me like while you're creating money through this fee fund to some aspect to pay these folks, that should open up the opportunity to erase some of the other jobs. Is that not correct?
No, because again, these fee funds are specifically used for these jobs. So there is no way to create new jobs or help fund other jobs as a result of it. This is funds that are specifically meant for this work.
Senator Dahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion, we have a second. We've discussed it. I think they've beat it to death. I think we need to take a vote and move on with life, whether we voted in or voted out. I think they've explained it thoroughly.
One quick question, and then we're going to go to a vote. Schwab.
really just a comment here. I feel like if we don't have a list of these 47 full-time positions that are open and why they've been open so long and exactly how they're funded, where the money's coming from, where it's going to, then I don't think we're being very good stewards of our tax dollars. And therefore, I would support, as we had voted yesterday, in removing these 20 full-time positions, because that still would leave approximately 27, but you said 17 have been filled. That still leaves 10 vacant positions, if my math is correct. And I think that's plenty of leeway in a budget to move things around. Just my opinion, but I feel like we've been confused here by the information that we're receiving, and I just am not liking it.
Yeah, I'm expecting there's probably this is not unusual practice in all the other budgets, but, you know, you're new to the process, and I'm sure, you know, other senators, go ahead. Wait a second. Wait a second.
I don't feel I'm confused because I'm new to the process. I feel like I'm confused because of the information that we're being given.
Okay, hey, wait a second. I'm chair.
You're being condescending.
Well, you know what? We're going to vote on this motion. That's what we're going to do.
Can I just clarify one thing, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Certainly, I respect your opinion, Senator. The one thing I would clarify is those jobs have been provided to research. Those jobs, I did chat with multiple senators on those jobs, so I would like to at least clarify that we have provided the information. Whether there's a dispute on what those dollars are, that's fine, but please respect the fact that we have provided that information.
We got Senator O'Shea's motion. We got a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Against, nay? No. Passes. Okay, division, all in favor, please signify by, or raise your hand. Against, nay, raise your hand. 5-4, passes.
Mr.
Any of the noes want to be recorded?
Absolutely.
Okay, all 4, you're recorded. We're back on the bill. Senator Tyson, you have the floor.
I move that we remove 5 of the FTEs.
Do you have a second on the motion? Okay, questions or comments? Senator Stephan made it. Anybody have any questions or comments? Not seeing any, we'll go ahead and vote on it. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Against, nay? No. The noes have it.
Division.
Okay, all in favor of the motion to remove 5 FTEs, raise your right hand. Okay, you got 4. And all against, raise your hand. 4-4, motion dies.
I wanted it recorded that the chairman's breaking the tie.
Now, the chairman don't have to break the tie on that because it's a tie and tie has to win.
Thank
So-
you. Mr. Chairman, I have another motion.
Okay, what's your motion?
I have $1.4 million in Bioscience Authority money that is just sitting there in the bank, and I would request that the committee remove 1.3 million of it.
Okay,
We're leaving $100,000 in the fund for the department to use as needed, and I also want a provision in that if they do need more money to pay off, then that money will be made available to them.
okay, we've got a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, Senator Straub, seconds. Senator Holland, you have a question? Okay, we're in discussion. Go ahead, Senator Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could Commerce talk about, I do support the spirit of the motion, but what I do want to have a better picture of is with KBA, obviously there's going to be vendors with outstanding, basically claims against KBA and or I would assume refers back to the State Department of Commerce. What is Commerce's, I guess, estimate of what that liability looks like?
Before we do that, I'm going to have Dylan come up and give his analysis of, I believe under the Brownback administration, we put quite a bit of money there to pay off these obligations as we were winding it down. And that money's sitting there. There's still obligations out there. I'll let you explain them. And there is a certain excess, but maybe not as much as everybody thinks.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, there was about $5 million or $6 million put in order to be able to settle the ongoing obligations of the Kansas Bioscience Authority when the Kansas Bioscience Authority was dissolved by the state legislature. In the beginning, there was a lot of payments that were going out. And last year, I think there was about $25,000 of actual payments that went out over the entire course of the fiscal year. Year to date, I think there's been about $10,000 in payments, and that's because certain companies have to hit their milestones in their contractual arrangements in order to be able to draw those funds down. So there are theoretical payments that could be made at some point in the future. However, we don't know if those companies are going to hit their milestones or not in order to be able to draw those funds down. If I understand the maker of the motion correctly, the recommendation would be to lapse those funds, and then in the event one of the companies does in fact hit those milestones and triggers that contractual obligation to make that payment, a transfer would be made from the state general fund to the Kansas Bioscience Authority Fund in order to make that payment.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. And also, I just want to clarify that last year it was only 10,000 used out of that fund. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's 10,000 this year, year to date, and 25,000 last year.
Okay.
So fiscal year
100,000
2020.
should be comfortable to cover it.
Do you have an estimate? Because we were talking earlier and you said you thought maybe 400,000. Sure, but I mean, I'm not trying
I'm
to put
obviously,
you on
as the Legislative Research Department, we're not speaking for or against the motion. I just want to make that clear, 100%. But in our conversations and, sort of our internal estimates, if there were 400,000, that would certainly would appear to be adequate to pay those payments. But it doesn't really make any difference whether it's 400,000 in the fund or 100,000 in the fund if there's the language that would allow the transfers to occur. Because at that point, you would know that the obligations would be taken care of.
And they wouldn't need reappropriated then, as long as the transfers would occur.
Mr. Chairman, you would probably leave a reappropriation authority. Of course, you can do it however you like. But if there is not reappropriation authority on that SGF account, then that money would lapse back to the state general fund. And so it would not be available if some payment becomes due in fiscal year 2022 or fiscal year 2023.
Senator Tyson, did you have any follow-up? And then back to Holland.
I had researched it and visited with people that are familiar with the fund, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but they told me that we could actually take all of it. I'm more comfortable leaving at least 100,000 based off of what's happened the last 2 years. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Tyson, or I'm sorry, Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just to maybe a follow-up to that. So have you guys done any recent analysis as far as the outstanding obligations? What is most likely going to be coming back against the state, say, in the next couple of years?
Mr. Chairman, I have the list of companies that those obligations are owed to. However, I'm not really in a position to comment about the likelihood of paying any of those milestones. The Department of Commerce might have better information on that.
Okay.
Follow-up, Mr. Chairman. So what is, say, if all the obligations came due tomorrow, what would that bottom line be?
Most recent number I saw was 1.3 million.
Okay. But there's nothing out there. You can't look at a specific obligation and say, more likely than not, this is going to come due. You just don't know on any of them at this point. That'd be correct?
Mr. Chairman, I could not comment on that. I don't have that information.
And how many specific, from just a number standpoint, how many different obligations are out there? We talk about $1.6 million exposure. How many specific outstanding invoices or obligations? Just numbers, what are we talking?
I think it was, the list I saw had like 10 companies on it, but once again, I would defer to the Department of Commerce to comment upon that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all, please. Appreciate it.
We'll let Commerce answer them questions too.
Sherry, do you have that information on KBA by chance?
Yes, there are currently 8 companies that we would have obligations to.
What would the dollar amount be?
Dylan was correct. If they were to request all of it, it would be approximately 1.285 million.
Just one additional follow-up. I don't understand the nature of the obligation that we're committing to. Are these, what's a typical type of obligation where, say, maybe they have performed Are these like performance incentives where these actually have gone out to startups or companies or whatever from an investment perspective? They hit certain milestones and we owe them money? Is it a performance thing on our part? What is the kind of the nature? Give me a flavor of these types of obligations.
I don't want to misspeak, but they are for grant payments for the performance milestones. They have like research development that they're doing related to bioscience.
Okay, so
Once they-
Mr. Chairman, so just to clarify, so basically, these would basically be grants types of obligations where we're waiting on deliverables to be provided back to the state. Those deliverables may or may not even be germane anymore. It's just something contractually that we're on the hook to pay them for once they complete the deliverables. That'd be correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Dahl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I'm understanding this right, Senator Tyson's recommendation, there is absolutely no risk. It's all about the language. Is that correct? I mean, if the language is correct, we're not risking. We're taking the money out, but it's good. We're taking this money that's not being used, and there's no risk being put forward, is there?
My understanding, it will go to the general fund, and if it's needed, they will be able to bring it back. Is that correct? Is that your motion? If there's bills to pay?
Mr. Chairman, that is my motion. I'm afraid that the money's not being utilized to the full, we're not very good. We just let money hang around in the bank in the state of Kansas, and I am trying to put the money to the best use possible for the Kansas taxpayer.
You got a follow-up, Senator Dahl?
I think it's a great request.
Yeah. Well, we just wanted to make sure we got the detail we needed. Are there further questions or comments? Not seeing any. On the Tyson motion, we will leave 100,000 over there to service and bills, and then with that, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, nay, passes. Okay. Go ahead, Senator Tyson. I have another amendment, and this is just a recommendation from this committee that portion of that money that we just saved would be used to reimburse scrap metal dealers that paid fees. I know this is economic development, and these guys need the development. They paid fees into a fund that did not exist, and it's going to be less than $200,000 to reimburse them. I don't see that germane to our budget. I think. And I have another motion. I think, I'm not trying to pull one here, but I think that's probably. That's fine, I've already spoken to the chairman, he's going to take care of it. Well, that's. So, I have another recommendation. Go ahead. I recommend that I have talked to the department. I was going to attempt to cut their travel. I feel that it is an exorbitant amount, but instead of doing that, I am just going to specify that only Commerce employees and the governor are allowed to travel under the Commerce budget travel. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Senator Hall, go ahead.
I want Commerce's thoughts on this.
Okay, David?
So if I understand correctly, the motion is strictly Commerce staff and Governor staff would be allowed to use those funds. Sorry, Governor and Commerce staff. I guess I'm trying to remember back. I do know the governor may have a staff member that sometimes goes on that, and that is sometimes covered under that. Other than that, that is usually what that funding is for. I don't know that we have a position on this either way, to be frank with you.
Senator O'Shea was next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious who might be using those funds that's outside of that group of people currently? Might it be contract workers? Who else are we talking about that would use that travel?
So normally, I mean, it's mostly commerce staff work or our recruiting staff. Other than that, or, you know, then the other side, it's Kansas workforce. So they are commerce staff. Sherry, is there anybody I'm missing in that you might be able to identify?
No, you're correct.
Go ahead.
Follow up. You
Senator.
said commerce staff or recruiting staff. Are recruiting staff not commerce staff?
So if I'm and I'm trying to make sure I word this correctly, Sherry, are they technically under contract?
They are under contract and their travel would have been written into their contract.
Senator Dahl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like this. We're kind of in a unique situation right now here. And I can see a point where let's just say that we have a separate Secretary of Commerce and separate Lieutenant Governor in 2022. I can see where a governor would appoint the Lieutenant Governor to make some of these trips. So by specifically putting the governor, you know, which wouldn't have any right now because Toland's both, but we have the Lieutenant Governor, and that governor assigns that Lieutenant Governor to go on an economic development trip. I see where this could be problematic. If we could include the governor's appointee or a governor and appointee, I would be happy to support this.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Senator Tyson.
Thank you. This is not intended to be a gotcha for the lieutenant governor at all. I mean, he qualifies. He's an employee of commerce. So I don't see a problem with this at all. She can absolutely always send him. This is just, we have abuse of, and I'm not saying commerce, I'm just saying that there's a lot of travel that goes on that we know what's coming. Okay, right now we've got a cash inflow, revenues are up, 175 million, over estimates. We all know the numbers. But what we also know is that we need to tighten our belts for tough times that are coming. And so this is just being cautious going forward, that we're not exorbitant with that spending. That's all this is about.
Senator Dahl, you got a follow-up?
Yeah, I agree completely with Senator Tyson, completely. But and under this circumstance, I would be all for what she's presenting, but when we have a separate lieutenant governor, maybe we ought to eliminate the lieutenant governor's position and then make him, you know, or have him a double, but we're not here for that, but I just.
My biggest concern, and this is my biggest concern, is if we're going down there to close a deal and we're leaving someone at home that can help close that deal. I don't ever recall there be restrictions before, but I could be wrong. And, you know, if we're gonna close a big deal and it takes that one extra person, I don't know where we're going here. The Department of Commerce is gonna do some traveling. They're gonna take some people along, hopefully out of the agency, because that's who needs to close the deal, or the governor. But I don't see why we would limit it, you know, if there's that one extra person. If, when we were going down to close the NASCAR deal, if we wanted to take the mayor of Wyandotte County to do that, I guess this would probably eliminate that. I don't know. I mean, but if that closed the deal and got it done, I'm going to go ahead and go to Senator Hall, and he was next, and then O'Shea, and then Rob.
I guess I just had a question for the carrier of the amendment, and then I have a question for Commerce and some comments. For the carrier of the amendment, can the senator tell me, is there a specific audit report or a specific concern that the senator has about current travel expenditures or travel budgeting practices within the Department of Commerce? Is there something specific she's pointing at that we need to be made aware of?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's to Senator Tyson, that question.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, yes, sir.
Sorry, go ahead, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is not, what it is doing is, I actually went back and looked in history, and when Governor Sebelius was in this situation that we are soon going to be facing, with the economy, the budget, one of the first things that she did was restrict travel. She cut it completely. And so I'm taking a very cautious look at how we're spending our money on travel and other items that have been done in the past in order to be, as I said, efficient and save taxpayers.
Senator Holland?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess I do have a question for Commerce. I mean, don't you guys every so often go over like to the air show in France and kind of jump up and down and talk about what the good things we have going on in Wichita?
David Sofer, Department of Commerce. Yes, we do. So we go to either Paris Air Show. We do have trade missions and the like. So yes, we do promote our state. We do trade missions. We do try to create ways to create relationships to bring new dollars into the state through travel.
All right, and I want to be sure I'm not misconstruing the amendment. When we talk about travel, is it just out-of-state air travel? Is this like any travel within the state? What are we talking about on the amendment? Senator Tyson, please.
Thank you. All this amendment would do was say for in-state and out-of-state travel for it would not pay for, Commerce would not pay for anyone's travel unless they were a Commerce employee or the governor.
Senator Holland?
Yeah, I'm going to speak against the amendment because, and it goes back, Mr. Chairman, exactly what you're saying. I mean, when they do some of these things, it's often important, say, for other local officials, it may be business people from the area, whatever, that need to go someplace to be as part of this, to participate in these talks and close these deals. I feel very uncomfortable with this. I mean, our Secretary of Commerce or Lieutenant Governor, however you want to call him or describe him, I mean, he's getting all these golden shovel awards. I mean, he's bringing stuff to the state. If we have a specific concern, let's, that we can point out, I'm all for ferreting that out. But quite honestly, I too share the Senator's comments about belt tightening coming on the economy. And, Secretary Tolan is Secretary of Commerce. Okay, he's getting it done, and we need to be going out and grabbing even more of these economic development deals, bringing them to Kansas because the hurt's coming. So I do not want to see that hurt, and so that's just my concerns with this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator O'Shea?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious I feel like I want more examples of who else would normally be asked, and has there been examples in the past of taking a mayor for a recruiting job or taking maybe a local economic development person? I'm trying to understand who else would ever be paid for by Commerce. Thank you.
Sure. I cannot recall in my 4 years here specifically of anybody that was not a Commerce member traveling or not a member of the governor or governor's staff. But again, my limitation on that knowledge is the last 4 years. So I'm not aware of any recent trip or anything of the like that would involve someone that's not Commerce related or governor related.
Actually, Senator Straub had the floor next.
Mine is more just a comment. If we're budgeting this travel for Commerce, then I think it needs to be specifically used for Commerce. It's my understanding that there's a good possibility that tourism will be added to the Department of Commerce. I assume that tourism also has their own travel budget dollars. So I think it's just being good stewards to make sure that those funds that are directed for Commerce travel are used only for Commerce travel.
Follow up or Senator Tyson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have, this is not an intent. In fact, this is an effort to work with the department. My intent was actually to cut their budget and travel. So instead of proposing a cut to travel, I am just recommending that we keep it within the department and the governor. I spoke to him, and the governor does go on trips, and she is a face for Kansas and can help promote business. So I am not trying to cut them out from underneath the knees. Again, I'm trying to be frugal and smart about how we spend our money. And I think restricting it to the department shows good judgment, because it doesn't mean that the individuals can't travel with them. It just means that it wouldn't be on the taxpayer dime.
Senator Herscher? Sorry, I'm long way.
We'll work on it later. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to go back to something. It sounds like we aren't necessarily finding issues with how the money's being spent at this point. I do like the fact that we give some discretion to the department in cases, as you mentioned earlier, Mr. Chairman, if we have a situation going and there are people we want to call in, plus the fact that, you know, do we think Toland is going to be in the Commerce, as the Commerce Secretary as well as Lieutenant Governor forever? I mean, what if we get a different Lieutenant Governor and we want that individual to be out at these different events? So I appreciate the spirit of the amendment very much, but like I said, I do like to have some discretion there as far as using people who are qualified to go out and help us in securing some of these deals and keeping our Commerce Department moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Peck's next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Straub and I get the privilege of sharing a microphone, goes back and forth. Just for clarification, I think there's a lot of confusion being created here. We're only talking about a one-year budget. We're not talking about changing statute, putting anything into law, restricting down the road. This is just a one-year budget saying that we foresee some difficult times coming, and we are saying we understand that, and we're starting to think in terms of how can we be better stewards of taxpayer dollars. But the main point I want to make, Mr. Chairman, is this is just a one-year deal. This is just saying, so the talk about our current secretary and lieutenant governor being the same and potential down the road not being the same are, no disrespect, but they're irrelevant because this is a one-year budget. Then it will end before any change, I believe, that we would have, unless, of course, the secretary were to resign and the governor appoints someone else. But anyway, again, my point, we're not making a significant change here, so I support the motion.
Senator Holland?
I'll just leave it with, if whoever is our Secretary of Commerce, if they need to fly, the president of Spirit over to France, on the state's dime to close the deal, more power to them. And I'm not going to second guess that. I have no idea why we're getting into this department's knickers about managing this when nothing has been raised about current practices. I don't understand the concern. So I think it's just going to hamstring our economic development efforts. I'll be voting against it. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments? Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Against, say nay. Okay, we got division. All in favor, please raise your hand. Got 5 for it. Against, raise your hand. Got 3 against, so it passes. Yes.
Of course.
Okay.
Sorry. This one should be generic to every single department and agency. This is absolutely not towards commerce. But our administration is not following the intent of House Bill 2739. And so I would like a recommendation that next year we see a budget that follows the letter of the law, House Bill 2739.
This is the budget that's handed to me from the Ways and Means, and it's what we're working off of. They've never said it wasn't. I don't know if that's something staff wants to comment on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you look at page 1424 in the budget analysis before you, I think this is what the motion is in reference to. The 2016 legislature passed House Bill 2739. There were a variety of requirements that were part of the performance-based budgeting process that were in there. They have things like, establishing priorities for every single program, and some of those have been complied with. But one of them is like outcome measures, specifically for each one of the programs and each one of the different types of interventions. I'm not going to say agencies are or are not complying with that one way or the other. I think that would be a longer conversation. But it sounds to me like this is a recommendation that would simply say, there's these requirements in 2739 to establish performance-based budgeting and outcome measures, and we recommend that outcome measures be submitted. If I understand the motion correctly, it's the way I wrote it down.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Senator Stephen. Oh, O'Shea, you had a question?
I was curious what that House bill was, but now I know. I don't think there's anything wrong with us recommending this, and I think it'd be a good reminder that we're cognizant of that. So I'll be supporting the motion.
All the information we got come through Ways and Means Chair, so I'm not going to be collecting the information. If it comes back here next year, it'll be the Ways and Means Chair that will collect it through research. So this will be one on them to figure out. And Senator Tyson, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, this is not a reflection of you. This is a reflection of how the budget came to us, all of us.
Okay.
And I think it would help clarify some of the questions that we've heard today, like the FTEs, the programs, why they exist, where the funding's coming from. That was the intent of that House bill. And I think, and like I said, this is not a reflection of the Department of Commerce. All of the departments have done this and agencies, and I've brought it up in every budget meeting that I've been in. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Holscher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if this is for you or David, but could someone speak to the process that is utilized before this budget gets to us, the vetting?
Sure.
What has happened prior to this, essentially?
I'm actually going to yield to Sherry on the budget process. I'm not nearly as involved on that one.
Okay, I'm sorry, Senator, can you repeat your question? I couldn't hear that well.
Sure. My understanding is that there is a pretty lengthy process as far as establishing the budget before it gets to us here in committee. Could you just briefly outline for us what that process looks like, the vetting, that type of thing, so that we know what has happened prior to the budget coming to us in committee?
Okay, so in August, the agency starts the budget process as it's due to division of budget in September. So we're working usually in July and August to complete the agency budget, and then it's submitted to division of budget in September. And then they take about a month to review and make any recommendations that they see. And it's sent back to the agency. We can either appeal decisions that they've made or continue forward. And then once the Division of Budget has reviewed it, it goes to the governor for her review and any recommendations that she may have. And that process usually happens in December. And then we receive the governor's recommendations for the budget in January, and which is what you're working off of now. And then it goes through different committees.
Very good, thank you.
Further questions or comments? Got a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Against, nay? Passes. Want division? Any further questions, comments, motions? Okay, do we have a motion? Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the benefit of the committee, since Mr. Deere is here, we are operating, aren't we, as basically a budget committee, and what we are doing are making recommendations to the full Ways and Means. So anything we do here may or may not be accepted by the Ways and Means Committee. Is that correct? And while I'm asking questions, I'm just going to throw a bunch of them at you because I realize that I can throw 50 questions at you and you'll hear one of them and answer it. No, I'm kidding. We have a history from my past life. Anyway, and then if any of us decide that we are displeased with the committee recommendation/report, we do not sign the report and we can file a minority report. Is that correct? I'm just asking for the committee's benefit for the process, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, and I actually really appreciate the question because the process is a little different this year than it has been in past years, just because they're digital. You'll receive a PDF copy of the subcommittee report, which you can review. The senator is correct. If you do not concur with the recommendations of the report, or you want to file a minority report, you just let me know, and I can attach your minority report to the back of the subcommittee report, which will then go to the full Senate Ways and Means Committee, so they can sort of review those comments that are in there. You don't have to be in the minority party in order to file a minority report. It just means that you, in fact, disagree with the recommendations of the committee as a whole. A signature on the page, there are no signatures this year. It's actually happening all electronically. However, signatures traditionally don't actually indicate that you either agree with or disagree with the report. It simply indicates that you agree that those were in fact the votes of the committee. It's not uncommon for there to continue to be disagreement and for people not to sign the report. And other people just don't want to put their signatures on anything that they don't disagree, that they in fact disagree with, so they don't sign it, all of which is perfectly fine. The purpose of the signatures is simply to indicate that yes, that was the will of the committee and that it has been acknowledged. Further questions?
Well, I've got lots, no, I don't. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Senator Holland?
I thank the good senator for bringing that question up. I've never really served on any of the Ways and Means. I've never been on Ways and Means and the subcommittees, except maybe like 1 year is really kind of fuzzy. I just want to make sure I understand. So as this process goes, just my understanding is whatever we recommend, this is non-binding. It's just going to the Ways and Means Committee, correct? And they will be taking under advisement in essence, correct? But there's nothing that drives what they're doing, right?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. I mean, I wouldn't call it non-binding because it's clearly the will of the senators that are present in this room that be included as part of the budget, and you are going to vote on the budget on the floor of the Senate. However, they are recommendations that will go to the Senate Ways and Means Committee, at which point they can be amended or adjusted before they get included in the final version that will go to the Senate floor.
I guess my point is that the people on Ways and Means aren't necessarily the same people in this room looking at this. So I want a little bit more background as far as just, do you have any perspective on why we are doing this process this year? What was the thought? Was it to streamline? Was it, that they want more legislative input, which would be like, a good reason. Just, can you provide any background on leadership going to this approach? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I am sorry, but that question would have to go to the chair of the Ways and Means Committee as far as why the decision was made to give budgets to policy committees instead of purely subcommittees. But I would note that if you look at the House side, those budget committees are not solely comprised of House Appropriations members. There's quite a few members on those budget committees that are not on appropriations either. And so it has a little bit broader group of people that provides some input. And so I'm just saying that there's not without precedence that there would be non-appropriations members making recommendations on the budget, because it is done in your sister chamber.
Okay. So our next move is, do we have a motion to pass this out and further it to the Ways and Means Committee? Senator Dahl?
I make that motion.
Okay, got a second? Senator Mosher, seconds it, sorry. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. All against, say nay. Passes. Did someone say no? You want to be recorded? Okay. Okay, we're passed out, and with that, we're adjourned.